I was told my parents were dead, my money was gone, and that I was not stable enough to question anything, until I found out my own sister had been controlling my life for 10 years and building a company with my inheritance. She told everyone I was unstable, told me everyone else was gone, and kept every dollar I was supposed to have. But she never expected me to start asking questions. What she did not see coming was that this was not just family betrayal. This turned into a federal revenge case. And at 9:17 a.m., the day she walked into her office thinking she still had control, the FBI walked in behind her. By the time it was over, she was facing wire fraud, forgery, and money laundering charges, and the sentence was 24 years in federal prison. My name is Daniel, and this is the story of how I took my life back and turned her lies into my revenge. Chapter 1. The day my dead grandfather walked into my office. I did not know it that morning, but my entire life had been managed for me without my permission. My name is Maris Veller. I am 34 and I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I work as an office manager at Veller Estates Group, a real estate company owned by my older sister, Claudia. If you walked into our office, you would think I had a real role. I sit near the front, I talk to clients, I keep things organized. But most days, I am refilling coffee, fixing printer jams, and covering for mistakes no one wants to admit. I am useful, just not important. I make $39,000 a year. That number shapes everything. It keeps me in a small apartment with thin walls and a broken air vent that never quite cools the place in the summer. It keeps me driving a 2009 Toyota that sounds like it might give up every time I press the gas. A few weeks ago, it did. It stalled in the middle of traffic on my way to work. Cars lined up behind me, horns blaring, people leaning out of their windows. I tried the ignition again and again, but nothing happened. My hands were shaking when I called Claudia. I was not asking for money, I just needed help. She told me I needed to learn how to handle my own problems. Her voice was calm, like she was talking about something small. I stood there while people drove around me like I didn't matter. I ended up pushing the car myself. I was late that morning. Claudia called me into the conference room and pointed it out in front of everyone. She said reliability was what separated successful people from the rest. She said excuses were how people stayed where they were. I nodded. I always nodded. There was a time when I thought I could be more than that. Back in 2016, I started an MBA program at Arizona State. I remember sitting in my first class thinking maybe this was how things changed. But I couldn't afford to keep going. I asked Claudia for a loan, not gift, just enough to finish the semester. She looked at me for a long moment before she answered. She said I was not built for that kind of work. She said I should focus on what I was already doing because not everyone is meant to lead. I dropped out the next week. After a while, you stop arguing with that kind of voice. You start believing it. You start thinking maybe this smaller version of your life is the only version you get. There were other things too. Small things I ignored. My name not being on certain documents, Claudia asking me to sign papers without explaining them, emails about finances that never quite reached me. Once, I saw a document with my name already signed before I touched it. I asked her about it, and she smiled and said I must have forgotten. I let it go. That morning, my car was still unreliable, so I took the bus. It was quiet, early enough that most people kept to themselves. I sat by the window and watched the same streets I had seen for years. Everything felt predictable, safe in a way that now feels embarrassing. An older man sat next to me. He wore a simple gray coat. Nothing about him stood out at first, except the way he paid attention. After a few minutes, he asked where I worked. I told him. He asked if I liked it. I said it was fine. He nodded, but his expression didn't change. For some reason, I kept talking. I told him about my sister, about how she built the company, about how everyone respected her. I told him I worked there too, but it never really felt like it belonged to me. I told him I felt stuck. The words came out easier than I expected, like they were waiting for a reason to exist. He listened without interrupting. When he stopped, he looked at me in a way that made me feel like I had just said something important, even if I didn't fully understand it yet. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "You always let her speak for you, don't you?" I froze. I didn't remember telling him that. When the bus reached my stop, I stood up. He stood too. He asked if he could walk with me. I hesitated for a second, then said yes. There was something about him that felt familiar, even though I knew that didn't make sense. We walked into the office building together. The lobby was already busy, phones ringing, people talking, the usual rush. I set my bag down behind the front desk and reached for the coffee supplies. Halfway through pouring a cup, I felt it. The shift. I looked up. Claudia was standing in the middle of the lobby. She had gone completely pale. I'd never seen her like that. She was always controlled, always composed, always the person everyone else depended on. But right then, she looked like she had lost something she couldn't get back. The man beside me stepped forward. His voice was calm, steady, and impossible to ignore. "I believed you told her I was dead." The room went quiet. I felt my chest tighten. I looked at Claudia, then back at him. "Do you know him?" I asked. Claudia took a small step back. "This isn't funny," she said, her voice sharper than I had ever heard her. The man turned to me. His expression softened, just slightly. "Maris, right?" I nodded. My throat felt tight, like something inside me was starting to break open. He held my gaze for a moment, then said his name, Arthur Veller. Everything inside me dropped. Arthur Veller was my grandfather. He was supposed to be gone. Claudia told me he passed away years ago. I built my understanding of our family around that fact. I never questioned it. I looked at her, waiting for her to correct him, waiting for her to fix this the way she fixed everything else. She shook her head, just barely. "You're supposed to be dead," she whispered. Arthur looked at me again, and there was something heavier in his eyes now. "I was told you did not want to see me, that you needed space, that you had cut yourself off from the family." I shook my head before he even finished. "No, that is not true." My voice felt small, but it was the only thing I knew for certain. He nodded slowly, like he had expected that answer. That's when everything started to come apart. All the small things I had ignored suddenly felt different. The missing emails, the papers I signed without reading, the signature that appeared before I touched the page, the way Claudia always spoke for me when it came to anything that mattered. It wasn't protection, it was control. And for the first time, standing there in that lobby, I understood something that I should have seen years ago. I had not just been living a small life. I had been living the life my sister decided I was allowed to have. Chapter 2. Everything I was told was a lie. The room did not feel real anymore, like I had stepped into a version of my life that had been running without me the whole time. I stayed seated, but everything inside me had shifted. Arthur did not rush. He watched me like he knew this part mattered more than anything else he could say. Claudia stayed near the glass wall, arms tight across her chest, like if she held herself together hard enough, none of this would fall apart. I looked at Arthur. "Start from the beginning." He nodded slowly. "After your parents passed, your sister came to see me. She told me you were not coping well. She said you were overwhelmed, that you were isolating yourself, that you did not want to talk to anyone from the family." I shook my head. "That never happened." He gave a small nod. "I tried calling you. Every time it went through her. She told me you were not ready, that hearing from me would make things worse." I felt something twist in my chest. "I waited for you," I said. "I kept thinking maybe you would call." Claudia let out a sharp breath. "You were barely functioning back then." I turned toward her. "Do not rewrite this." Her jaw tightened. "You could not even handle basic things. You think you were ready to deal with everything your parents left behind?" Arthur spoke again, cutting through her. A few weeks later, she told me you wanted to cut all contact, that you needed to move on completely. She said it was your decision. I let out a quiet laugh. She told me you were dead. The words hung in the air. Arthur closed his eyes for a second. Then we were both lied to. I leaned back in my chair. 2 lies, 2 victims. Arthur reached for his folder and pushed it toward me. You need to see this. My fingers felt colder than they should have as I opened it. The number hit first. $920,000. I stared at it, then looked up. What is this? Your inheritance, he said. Everything your parents left after the house was sold. My throat went dry. I never saw any of this. Because you were not allowed to. I kept flipping through the pages. Legal filings, probate documents, transfers. Then I saw it. A petition. Temporary financial guardianship. My name was on it. I read the description once, then again, like maybe it would change. Emotionally unstable, unable to manage finances, requires supervision. My hands tightened on the paper. What is this? Arthur did not answer right away. Instead, he pointed lower. The signature. I looked. My name was there, but it was wrong. Close enough to pass if you didn't know better, but I did. That's not my signature. Claudia did not flinch. I did what needed to be done. You forged it. I protected you. From what? From yourself. Her voice was calm, almost bored, like we were discussing something obvious. You panic under pressure. You avoid responsibility. You were never meant to handle that kind of money. Something inside me went very still. I flipped another page. My eyes stopped. There was a breakdown of expenses, transfers, accounts, then a line that made everything sharper. Salary distribution. My name. $39,000 a year. Paid from the estate. For a second, I couldn't process it. I looked up slowly. You paid me with my own money? Claudia did not answer, but she did not deny it either. Arthur leaned forward slightly. There's something else. I looked at him. The guardianship was not temporary. It was renewed every year. Updated reports were filed stating your condition had not improved. I felt the words hit me in pieces. Every year? Every year she told the court I was still unstable. Every year she kept control. I turned to Claudia. How long? She hesitated. How long? I repeated. Her eyes flicked away. Years. The room felt smaller. I thought about every decision I wasn't part of, every conversation I was excluded from, every moment I doubted myself because something didn't feel right, but I assumed I was the problem. I was not the problem. I was the excuse. I went back to the documents. Money moved. Accounts closed. New ones opened. Then I saw it. Formation documents. A company name. The date. 2015. 2 years after everything was transferred. My chest tightened. I looked up. Veller Estates Group. Claudia did not speak. You built this company with my money. She lifted her chin slightly. I built this company. The money was just a starting point. A starting point? I stared at her. You told me I wasn't capable. You told me I didn't belong in business. You made me feel like I should be grateful just to be here. Her expression hardened. And you should be. I gave you stability. I gave you a place. You gave me a cage. Her eyes flashed. I kept you safe. From what? This time she did not answer. Arthur watched quietly, but I could feel his attention shift toward me, like he was waiting. For what, I wasn't sure. I looked down at the pages one more time. $920,000. Years of lies. A life shaped without me knowing. Something inside me moved, but it didn't feel like breaking. It felt like something locking into place. All those years I thought I was smaller, less capable, not enough. I was never meant to grow, because if I did, everything she built would fall apart. I closed the folder carefully. "You never trusted me," I said. Claudia did not respond. "But you trusted me to stay quiet." That made her move. "Maris, do not do something you cannot undo." I held her gaze. For the first time, I wasn't looking for approval. I was measuring her. "You made sure I never saw the truth." My voice was steady now. "Now I have." She took a step closer. "You don't understand how complicated this is." "Then explain it." She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. And that was it. That was the moment everything became clear. Not just what she did, but why. She didn't think I would ever question it. She didn't think I would ever see it. And more than anything else, she didn't think I would ever fight back. Chapter 3. The Life She Built with My Money. I did not go back to the office after that. Not the next day, not the day after. At first, I kept expecting something to break, like the world would push me back into place if I stepped out of it for too long. But nothing happened. No angry calls, no messages demanding explanations, just silence. That silence felt strange, but it also gave me room to think. And once I started thinking, I could not stop. 3 days later, I sat in a quiet office in downtown Phoenix across from a woman named Rebecca Sloan. She handled financial fraud cases, the kind that did not come together unless there was something serious underneath. She went through the documents slowly, page by page, without reacting much. That somehow made it worse. When she finally looked up, her expression had changed. This was not a mistake. I leaned forward. "What is it then?" She tapped the folder lightly. "It is structured. Forged signatures, invalid notarization, misrepresentation of your mental state. This was built to hold up under scrutiny." The word "built" stayed with me. "So it is fraud." She held my gaze. "It is planned fraud." That landed differently. Planned meant time, effort, intention. It meant I was not just ignored, I was used. Rebecca closed the folder. "We follow the money next." We spent the next few hours tracing everything. The estate was liquidated, then moved into an account under Claudia's control. From there, it was transferred into a company formed in 2015. I did not need to read the name twice. It was the same one on every document I handled at work, the same one on the glass door I walked through every morning, the same one on my paycheck. I stared at it until Rebecca spoke again. This company did not come from nothing. I let out a slow breath. No, it came from me. There was a knock on the door. Rebecca glanced at me, then opened it. A man stepped inside, early 30s, composed but tense in a way that was hard to miss. "I should not be here," he said quietly. Rebecca nodded. "Then make it worth it." He gave a short, uneasy smile and looked at me. "You are Maris, right?" I nodded. "I worked under Claudia for 3 years. My name is Daniel Brooks." Something about the way he said it told me this was not casual. "What do you want?" He pulled a small flash drive from his pocket. "I've been tracking transactions I couldn't explain. I flagged them internally, but they never went anywhere. Every time I got close, the data would change." Rebecca took the drive and plugged it into her computer. Files opened. Rows of numbers, adjustments, transfers labeled in ways that sounded harmless. Daniel pointed at the screen. "They call these asset adjustments. That's what we were told to say." I leaned closer. "And what are they?" He hesitated. "Ownership shifts, properties moving out of client control." My chest tightened. "Without them knowing?" He nodded once. Rebecca scrolled through the data. "Is there a pattern?" Daniel pointed again. Certain clients come up more often, older ones, less likely to question things. One name repeated over and over: Margaret Ellis. Rebecca looked at me. We need to talk to her. The house was small, quiet, the kind of place someone held on to for decades. I knocked. An older woman opened the door, her eyes cautious. Can I help you? My name is Maris. I worked with Claudia. The reaction was instant. Her shoulders dropped slightly, like something heavy had just been confirmed. You're her sister. I nodded. She stepped aside. You better come in. We sat in her living room. Rebecca explained everything carefully without overwhelming her. Margaret listened, her hands trembling in her lap. I trusted her, she said softly. My stomach tightened. She told me she could help me with my taxes, said it would protect my assets. Her voice cracked. I signed what she gave me. Rebecca spoke gently. What happened to your home? Margaret looked down. I don't own it anymore. Silence filled the room. I had to move into my daughter's basement. I thought I was going to die in that house. The words hit harder than anything else that day. This was not just numbers. This was people. On the drive back, no one said much. That night, my phone lit up. Claudia. I stared at the screen before answering. Hello? Her voice was softer than I expected. Where are you? I'm fine. You haven't been at work. I needed time. A pause. Family should handle things privately. We don't need outsiders involved. There it was. She knew something. You mean like you handled everything? Another pause. Her voice changed slightly. Don't make this worse than it already is. I ended the call. The next morning, Rebecca had something new waiting. She turned her screen toward me. One of the accounts is still active. I frowned. What does that mean? It's still being used. She pointed. The name on the account was mine. My stomach dropped. She's still using me. Rebecca nodded. Yes. Something in me settled. Not shock, not confusion, something colder. That afternoon, we sat down again. Rebecca closed the folder slowly. If you continue, this becomes federal. I held her gaze. Explain. Multiple victims, financial manipulation, forged documents. This goes beyond civil liability. I nodded. So what happens then? It means investigators. It means subpoenas. It means criminal charges. The room felt very still. There was a line in front of me. Everything before this was discovery. Everything after this was something else. Rebecca watched me carefully. If this starts, it doesn't stop. I thought about Margaret, about the house she lost, about the years I lost, about the life that was built using my name. I leaned back in my chair. For years, I thought I had nothing. Turns out I had everything. It was just taken from me. I looked at Rebecca. Then we start. She studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right. And sitting there, I realized something I should have understood a long time ago. This was never going to end quietly. And for the first time, that didn't scare me. It felt right. Chapter 4. The Day Everything Fell Apart. The next 6 weeks did not feel dramatic from the outside. If you walked into the office, everything looked the same. People came in, deals moved forward, emails were answered, meetings were scheduled. The machine kept running. But underneath it, everything was shifting. I went back to work like nothing had changed. Same desk, same routine, same quiet voice when I spoke to clients. The difference was in how I saw things. Every number meant something now. Every document had weight. Claudia noticed it too. One morning she stopped me outside her office and looked at me a second longer than usual. You look different, she said. I have been thinking. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. About what? About how things work. She held my gaze, searching for something. Then she smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. That can be dangerous. I am starting to see that. For a second, neither of us moved. Then she stepped aside, letting me pass. Behind the scenes, everything was tightening. Rebecca and her team built the case piece by piece. Daniel kept sending files, always careful, always nervous. I should not be doing this, he told me one night over the phone. You already are. If she finds out, I am finished. You are not the only one. He was quiet for a moment. Yeah, he said finally. I know. Russell Pierce held out longer than anyone expected. When Rebecca first approached him, he refused to cooperate. I am not involved, he said, his voice flat. But numbers do not lie. Records stacked up, transfers aligned, his name appeared too many times to ignore. 2 weeks later, he called. I need to fix this. We met in a private office downtown. Russell looked like he had not slept. It started small, he said, staring at his hands. Adjustments, reclassifications, nothing that felt illegal at first. When did you know? I asked. When I saw your file. He finally looked at me. The guardianship, the estate transfer, that's when I realized what she was doing. Then why stay? His answer came out slowly. Because by then I was already part of it. Silence settled between us. Then he said the only thing that mattered. I will cooperate. That was it. After that, everything moved fast. Documents were finalized, statements recorded, timelines locked in place. Rebecca closed the last folder one afternoon and looked at me. It's ready. I nodded. The day everything came down felt almost normal. Clear sky, bright light, the kind of morning that makes you believe nothing bad could happen. I got to the office early. Claudia was already there. She watched me as I walked in, not hiding it this time. You've been distant, she said. I have been busy. Doing what? Paying attention. Something flickered in her expression. You should be careful. I am. She studied me for another second. Then she turned away. By mid-morning, the entire office was gathered for a company meeting. Claudia stood at the front, confident, composed, exactly who everyone believed she was. She started her presentation. We are entering a new phase as a company. Her voice was steady, controlled. I stood near the back, watching. Russell was off to the side, still, unreadable. Daniel kept his head down. Everything looked exactly the way it always had. Then the door opened. At first, it barely registered. Then people turned. 3 men stepped inside. Dark suits, badges. The room shifted instantly. Claudia paused. Her eyes moved toward the door, then back to the room. She smiled. If this is about scheduling, you can speak to reception. One of the agents stepped forward. Claudia Mercer. Her posture straightened. Yes? His voice did not change. We need you to come with us. A murmur moved through the room. Claudia let out a small laugh. There must be some confusion. The agent opened a folder. You are under investigation for wire fraud, forgery, financial exploitation, and money laundering. The words landed one after another. Her smile faded. You cannot be serious. Another agent stepped forward. We have records, witness statements, and financial documentation. Her eyes shifted, just for a second, toward Russell. He did not look back. That's when everything cracked. You think you can take this from me? She said, her voice rising. No one spoke. I built everything here. Her control was slipping now, piece by piece. The agent stepped closer. Ma'am, please turn around. She did not move. Then slowly, she turned. Her eyes found mine. You did this. I held her gaze. You built it on me. The words were quiet, but they landed. Her expression changed. Not shock, not confusion, something sharper. The agents moved in. The sound of the cuffs closing was sharp, final. Someone behind me whispered. No one else said a word. Claudia stood straight, but the version of her that controlled everything was gone. As they led her toward the door, she looked back one last time. There was nothing left to hide. No control, no image, no illusion. Just anger. Pure and clear. Then she was gone. The door closed. The room stayed still. For years, everything in that space revolved around her. Every decision, every outcome, every version of the truth. And in a few minutes, it collapsed. Publicly. Completely. I stood there, surrounded by people who had no idea what really been happening, or how close they'd been to it. I exhaled slowly. For the first time, the silence did not feel heavy. It felt open, like something had finally been cleared. And standing there, I realized something that mattered more than anything else. For the first time in my life, she was the one losing everything, and I was the one still standing. Chapter 5. What Justice Actually Looks Like. The courtroom felt smaller than it should have. Not because of the space, but because everything that had been hidden for years was finally sitting in one place, forced into the open where no one could reshape it anymore. I took my seat and kept my eyes forward. I already knew who was there. People who had trusted her. People who had signed papers they did not fully understand. People who, like me, had slowly realized something in their lives had been taken without their consent. Margaret Ellis was called first. She moved carefully to the stand, one hand brushing the edge of the rail like she needed something steady. "I trusted her," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried. She told me she was helping me protect my home, that everything was routine, that I did not need to worry. She paused. I signed what she gave me. The silence in the room pressed in. "I do not have that house anymore," she said. "I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life there." She stepped down without looking at anyone. That was when it stopped being just my story. Russell Pierce followed. He did not try to defend himself. He just explained. "The numbers were adjusted after the outcome was decided," he said. "We were told what it needed to look like, and we made the reports match." He walked through the structure step by step. Accounts layered across entities, transfers broken into smaller pieces, everything designed to look clean on paper while hiding what was really happening underneath. It was not careless. It was built. When my name was called, I stood without thinking too much about it. I told the truth. About the years I believed something was wrong with me. About the documents I signed because I trusted the person putting them in front of me. About the version of my life that had been handed to me and how long it took before I questioned it. Rebecca placed the documents in front of the court. 2 signatures, one real, one not. Even from a distance, the difference was clear. There was no argument left to make. When Claudia finally spoke, she did not look at me. She sat straight, composed, holding on to whatever control she thought she still had. Her attorney talked about pressure, about confusion, about how things had gotten out of hand. But the truth did not move. It stayed exactly where it was. The trial stretched over several days, each one adding another layer that made everything harder to deny. Records, emails, statements, every piece fit too cleanly. By the time the judge began to speak, the room had gone completely still. He read through the findings carefully. Each word felt deliberate, measured, final. Then the sentence. 24 years in federal prison. No one reacted loudly, but something shifted. Claudia's face changed in a way I had never seen before. Not panic, something quieter, like she had just realized that there was no version of this where she stayed in control. For a moment, she looked at me. Really looked, like she expected something from me. I gave her nothing. She spent years deciding what my life was supposed to be. This was the first moment she had no say in it at all. Asset forfeiture followed. Accounts frozen, property seized. Some of it would come back to us, not all of it. It never works that cleanly. I expected to feel something sharp when it ended. Relief, anger, satisfaction. Instead, I felt light, like something I had been carrying for so long I stopped noticing the weight, and then suddenly it was gone. Outside the courtroom, her attorney approached me. "She wants to speak with you," he said. I looked at him for a second. Then I shook my head. "No." "It might help you move on." I let out a small breath. "I already have." Closure was never going to come from her. It comes from understanding what really happened and deciding it does not get to define you anymore. Arthur was waiting near the steps when I walked outside. We stood there in the sunlight without saying anything at first. "It is done," he said. "Yeah," I answered, but it did not feel like an ending. It felt like space. The process of recovering what was left took time. Paperwork, reviews, decisions. In the end, most of it came back. Not everything, but enough. Enough to build something that was actually mine. Arthur and I started over. New name, new structure, no shortcuts. Smaller, on purpose. Every decision documented, every client informed. No blind trust. People noticed. Slowly at first, then steadily. The people who came to us asked questions. They paid attention. They stayed. A few months later, I bought a house. Not big, not impressive, just mine. The first night there, I walked through each room slowly. No pressure, no noise, no one else shaping what came next. Just space. I used to think I was broken, that something in me had failed. It took me years to understand the truth. I was never broken. I was controlled. She took 10 years from me. That part is real. But she didn't get the rest. I took that back. She thought she owned my story. She was wrong. I am not the person she shaped anymore. I am the one who ended what she built. And let me ask you something. If the person who destroyed your life stood in front of you and asked for forgiveness, would you give it to them? Or would you finally choose yourself, even if it meant walking away for good? If this story meant something to you, stay with me. Share your thoughts below and follow along for more stories that might feel a little closer to your own.